True masculine energy doesn't react to every trigger. You don't flinch when she pulls away. You don't chase when she tests you. You don't fold when the tension rises. You remain silent, grounded, and unmoved, not because you don't care, but because you're rooted. Your silence isn't emptiness. It's dominance. It's strength. It's the kind of presence that speaks louder than words ever could. A woman may try to provoke you to see if your emotions will betray you. She may go cold to see if you panic. She may pull back just to test whether your confidence is based on her validation. But when you stay silent, not out of bitterness but out of power, she begins to see what you're made of. That silence is unnerving to her, not because it's careless, but because it's controlled. You're not being quiet because you don't have anything to say. You're being quiet because not everything deserves a response, and not every moment calls for you to explain yourself. She feels that, deep down, she recognizes that kind of man is different. Most men are predictable. When they feel disrespected, they bark back. When they feel ignored, they beg for attention. When they feel challenged, they try to dominate. But the man who meets it all with calm, who doesn't rush to defend, justify, or retaliate, that man becomes a mystery to her. She doesn't know what you're thinking. She doesn't know if you're hurt, angry, indifferent, or simply done. And that mystery creates power, because instead of you obsessing about her, now she starts obsessing about you. She wonders if you still care. She wonders why you're so composed. She wonders what makes you so unshakable. And in her wondering, you occupy space in her mind in a way no desperate or reactive man ever could. When you master the art of silence, you begin to realize that speaking is often a form of self-defense. Most people talk because they're afraid. They fear being misunderstood, being forgotten, being unseen. But when you operate from masculine strength, you don't fear any of those things. You don't need to correct her perception. You don't need to prove your point. You don't need to beg to be heard. Your silence says, I know who I am with or without you. That kind of certainty is rare. And when a woman realizes she lost that, it hits her deep. Not right away, not always in the moment, but eventually when the noise fades, and all the attention she chased feels empty. Your stillness echoes. You are not moved by her confusion. You are not shaken by her inconsistency. You understand the value of your presence, and more importantly, the weight of your absence. When you withhold your reaction, it forces her to confront her own behavior. She begins to see that the silence she once mocked is now the very thing she misses. She may not say it, she may never admit it, but inside she knows. She knows you had the power to respond, to lash out, to chase. But you didn't, and that restraint, that emotional discipline, that ability to walk away without leaving a storm behind, that's what separates a man from a boy. Your quiet power is not passivity. It is not indifference. It is intentional. It is the mark of a man who has mastered himself, and that kind of man leaves a permanent impression, not because he tried to, not because he forced it, but because she knows, consciously or unconsciously, that she will never find that kind of presence again. She didn't just lose a guy, she lost something rare. She lost the man who didn't react like the rest. She lost the man whose silence spoke more truth than anyone else's words. She lost the king who didn't raise his voice to be heard, because his quiet already echoed through her soul. Masculine energy doesn't need to announce itself. It doesn't come in loud declarations or attention-seeking behavior. It doesn't chase validation or bend to gain approval. It simply exists, grounded, calm, unmoved. When a man walks into a room fully embodied in this energy, everything shifts. People may not be able to explain why, but they feel it. There's a weight to his presence, a stillness that commands respect. His posture, his pace, his tone, they all carry intention. There's no rush in his movements. No fidgeting, no unnecessary explanations, just the kind of still power that speaks of a man who is fully at home within himself. A woman feels this kind of presence differently. It's not just physical attraction, it's energetic gravity. When she sits across from a man who doesn't try to entertain her, impress her, or overtalk her, she begins to notice something unusual. There's no anxiety in him, no hidden agenda, no desperation behind his compliments. Just awareness, just calm observation, and that unnerves her in the best way, because she's used to men who orbit around her. She's used to energy that leans in too hard, too fast, trying to prove worth. But now she's faced with a man who leans back, not out of disinterest, but out of control. His detachment isn't cold, it's deliberate, it's powerful. He's assessing her just as much as she's assessing him, and that subtle power dynamic flips everything. This man doesn't need to speak often because his energy already fills the space. His words, when he chooses to use them, are slow and measured. He's not performing. He's not looking for laughs or praise. He's grounded in his truth, and that truth is unshakable. A woman who spends time with a man like this will often find herself drawn in, not because of anything he says, but because of everything he doesn't. His silence is full. His eyes don't dart around. They lock in, calm and curious. She feels seen but not consumed. She feels safe, yet somehow challenged. It's a paradox, and that paradox makes her restless in his absence. What this man possesses is not something that can be faked. You can't imitate grounded presence. You can't pretend to be at ease with yourself. It's the result of inner work, of silence embraced rather than avoided, of emotions processed rather than suppressed. It's the product of solitude, of intentional self-reflection, of choosing growth over comfort. That's what makes it so rare. Most men run from stillness because they fear what they'll find in it. But the masculine man walks into it willingly, and he comes out with a clarity that makes him untouchable. That clarity is felt, and when a woman senses it, she realizes she's in front of someone she can't easily manipulate, someone she can't easily figure out, someone she can't control, and that evokes a mix of fear, excitement, and deep respect. She knows that if she walks away from this man, he won't chase, he won't beg, he won't try to change her mind. He'll simply continue forward, steadily, quietly, powerfully, and it's in that silence, in that non-reactivity, that she begins to feel the weight of what she had, because it wasn't just a man giving her attention, it was a man offering presence. It wasn't just conversation, it was depth. It wasn't just interest, it was resonance. She knows she didn't just lose a man who looked good or said the right things. She lost a man whose entire being operated on a different frequency. A frequency that made her feel calm, seen, and magnetized all at once. That kind of presence stays with her. It lingers. It haunts. Because now she has to ask herself, where else will she ever feel that again? The truth is, presence is power, and it doesn't need to be explained, marketed, or justified. It's self-evident, it's sovereign, it's magnetic, and it makes a woman realize, once she loses it, that she didn't just walk away from a man. She walked away from the rare stillness she didn't know she needed until it was gone. A man who can hold his own emotional chaos without spilling it onto others becomes a fortress in a world full of emotional floods. He becomes the calm in the storm, not only for himself, but for everyone around him. Emotional mastery isn't about becoming cold, distant, or shut off. It's not about being numb or pretending you don't feel. It's about the quiet internal strength of knowing how to feel everything without letting those feelings control you. When a woman encounters a man like this, it shakes something in her. She's used to men who either bottle their emotions until they explode, or men who are so ruled by their feelings they become unstable. But when she meets a man who knows how to navigate his emotional landscape like a seasoned traveler, unafraid, steady, and composed, it's magnetic. Because he becomes the rare man who doesn't collapse under the weight of his heart. You see, the world constantly encourages men to either suppress or overexpose their emotions. Suppress them, and you'll be seen as strong. Overexpose them, and you'll be seen as sensitive. But the true masculine man doesn't follow either of those extremes. He embraces a third path, the path of integration. He acknowledges what he feels. He processes it. He investigates it, and then he decides what to do with it instead of letting it decide for him. That level of emotional intelligence creates a powerful container. A woman can feel it. She knows, consciously or subconsciously, that she's sitting in front of a man who will not project his wounds onto her. He will not turn his insecurity into accusations. He will not take his pain and use it to punish her. Instead, he holds it like a mountain holds snow and sun and wind. He doesn't collapse. He simply allows and remains. When you reach this level of emotional mastery, you no longer need her to rescue you from yourself. You no longer place the burden of your peace on her presence. You stop using her as a bandage for your unhealed parts. And that's when she realizes how different you are. Because most women are used to carrying the emotional weight of the men they date. They're used to being the therapist, the emotional regulator, the one who grounds the man. But now she's in front of someone who doesn't need to be rescued, who doesn't need to be mothered, who doesn't use her softness as an emotional crutch. That changes the dynamic completely, because now she doesn't feel the weight of fixing you. She feels the lightness of being seen by you. You become the mirror that reflects her, not the wound that drains her. And here's the thing, women want to be vulnerable, but they can only open up when they feel safe. And that safety doesn't come from money or status or physical strength. It comes from the energy of a man who is deeply anchored within himself. A man who, even when triggered, knows how to breathe through the fire without burning the entire house down. She observes how you respond to discomfort, to silence, to disagreement, to fear. She watches how you handle rejection, how you deal with frustration, how you speak when you're angry. And in those moments she determines whether you are emotionally sovereign or emotionally fragile. When you can sit with pain without turning it into blame, when you can feel sadness without collapsing into despair, when you can hold space for her chaos without becoming chaotic yourself, that's when she realizes she's not just with a man. She's with a fortress. This emotional self-mastery doesn't make you less masculine. It intensifies your masculine edge. Because now your power is not just physical, it's psychological. You become the man who can walk into a room and regulate not only his own nervous system, but the energy of the entire space. Your calm becomes contagious. Your centeredness becomes magnetic. And even if she leaves, even if she pulls away, even if she decides she's done, what she walks away from is not just your love, but your stability. She leaves behind the rare experience of being in the presence of someone who could feel without falling apart, someone who could care without controlling, someone who could hold space without needing to fill every silence with validation. And later, when the noise of the world becomes too loud, when the next man she meets explodes at her for the smallest trigger or shuts down completely when things get hard, she'll remember you, not for the things you said, not even for the things you did, but for how you made her feel safe, held, understood, because your emotional energy didn't pull from her, it anchored her, and that kind of man, that kind of grounded emotional presence. That's not something you replace. That's not something you forget. That's not someone you leave and feel indifferent about. That's a loss that echoes in her nervous system, in her heart, and in the silence of the nights where she realizes she didn't just lose a partner. She lost the calmest storm she ever touched. Masculine energy is disciplined, it's structured, it's consistent. It doesn't just move with emotion, it moves with purpose. A man who is truly walking in his masculine energy lives by a code. He has standards, routines, boundaries, and rituals that are not swayed by outside noise, not even by the woman he loves. Discipline is the backbone of masculine power, and when a man cultivates it deeply, it transforms every area of his life, his body, his finances, his habits, his presence. Discipline isn't about restriction, it's about alignment. A disciplined man doesn't do what feels good in the moment. He does what is right for the vision he has for his future. That vision drives him. It gets him up before the sun, keeps him working when others are relaxing, and makes him walk away from temporary pleasure to preserve long-term greatness. And when a woman sees this in a man, truly sees it, something shifts in her. Because most men are distracted, pulled by every temptation, ruled by their impulses. One moment they are full of ambition, the next they are numbing themselves with comfort. But when a woman watches a man become more focused after a breakup, when she sees him use his pain as fuel rather than a reason to collapse, it wakes something up in her. She starts to realize he's not like the others. He's not stuck in victim mode. He's not wallowing. He's not online throwing emotional darts or begging for closure. He's building in silence, in solitude, in total control. She watches from a distance as he levels up physically, mentally, financially, spiritually, and it shakes her. Because deep down she expected him to crumble without her, but instead he sharpened, and that image of him, growing while she doubted him, becomes unforgettable. A disciplined man is dangerous in the best way. He's not reckless with his time. He's not careless with his energy. He doesn't say yes to everything. He doesn't need to be everywhere. He's selective, precise, intentional. Every move he makes, every word he speaks, every relationship he engages in is a reflection of the empire he's constructing within himself. His life is his structure, and his daily actions are the bricks. Women may not always understand discipline on a conscious level, but they feel its effects. They feel it in his steady gaze, in his slow breath, in the way he doesn't flinch under pressure. They feel it when he tells them no without guilt, when he walks away instead of engaging in chaos, when he disappears into silence and returns stronger, clearer, colder, not because he's heartless, but because he's focused. That's the essence of a king in motion. And here's the thing, discipline reveals your value. The man who can delay gratification, who can resist the cheap highs, who can say no to short-term validation to say yes to long-term power, that man becomes priceless. He becomes the man women don't just desire, but regret losing because now she's not just watching him evolve, she's watching the version of him she never got to experience. The version of him that was born through pain and refined by purpose. She sees him taking care of his body, handling his money wisely, eliminating distractions, surrounding himself with higher-level people, studying, creating, winning, and she starts to feel it, that sting, that internal voice that whispers, "You had a seat at the table, and now you're watching him build the kingdom from the outside." Discipline also creates a shift in how you show up in relationships. You're no longer reactive. You're no longer bending over backward to please. You don't tolerate disrespect, not because you're arrogant, but because you know what you bring. You've sacrificed, you've endured, you've stayed true to a higher standard when it would have been easy to give in. That self-respect radiates. It's in your posture, your tone, your aura. You carry the energy of a man who doesn't chase anything but purpose, and that's what makes you worthy. That's what makes your absence felt more deeply than your presence ever was. Because when she sees that you're no longer trying to prove anything, when she sees that your focus is your fuel and not her attention, she realizes the painful truth. She lost not just a man, but the opportunity to be with someone who was becoming exceptional. And discipline doesn't stop, it compounds. Every day that you stay consistent, you separate yourself from the crowd, and the further you walk in that path, the more difficult it becomes to reach you. And not just physically, but emotionally, mentally, spiritually. You evolve out of her frequency. The things that used to keep you stuck no longer appeal to you. You're no longer looking for love to save you. You're not seeking a partner to complete you. You've become whole, complete, sharpened, refined, and she realizes, when it's too late, that she didn't just lose a man. She lost the man who was on his way to becoming a king. A disciplined man doesn't beg for her to return. He doesn't fight for breadcrumbs. He keeps building. And in the silence of his progress, in the stillness of his grind, she hears the loudest truth of all. He's not coming back. He's rising without her. You love, but you don't cling. You care, but you don't collapse. You offer your presence, not your dependence. And when it's time to walk away, you do it without making noise. That's non-attachment. That's one of the highest forms of masculine self-control. It doesn't mean you're emotionless. It means your emotions don't enslave you. It means your identity isn't wrapped around her acceptance. You're not begging for her energy, her time, her attention, because your sense of wholeness isn't dependent on what she gives or withholds. You've stepped into a space few men ever reach, the space where you can deeply love someone and still let them go . And when a woman realizes that you're capable of doing that, not out of apathy but out of strength, it shakes her at the core. Most women are used to emotional chaos. They're used to being begged for, pleaded with, chased after endlessly. They're used to men who spiral the moment she pulls away, who crumble when she says she needs space, who unravel the second they feel her slipping. But now she's met a different type of man, a man who feels the pain, who honors the loss, but who refuses to chase what no longer aligns. She feels that contrast. She feels the sudden vacuum where once she held power over your emotions. She realizes that you're not going to fight to convince her, not because you don't care, but because you respect yourself more than the illusion of connection. And that shift in power, that reversal of roles, is what brings her back into reflection. Non-attachment is not rejection, it's redirection. You're no longer pouring into a cup that can't hold water. You're no longer trying to build a foundation on unstable ground. You've grown to understand that attachment without reciprocity is self-betrayal, so you stop romanticizing potential. You stop explaining yourself. You stop pleading to be understood. You simply observe. You observe her actions. You feel the energy, and when the vibe no longer honors your value, you walk quietly, with grace, with strength. And it's that silence that haunts her, because in that moment she realizes the emotional leash she thought she had on you is gone. This kind of detachment doesn't come from pretending. It doesn't come from playing games. It comes from years of knowing your worth, from failures, from heartbreaks that taught you that love without respect is slavery. You've cried, you've tried, you've lowered your standards for the sake of connection, and you've paid the price. But now, you no longer fold under the weight of loneliness. You embrace solitude as sacred. You no longer need her presence to feel full. You've tasted your own power, and now that power fuels you more than any temporary affection ever could. When you practice non-attachment, you become dangerous in the best possible way. You're no longer easy to control. You don't move based on her hot and cold behavior. You don't engage in emotional chess games. She starts to realize you're no longer playing. You've left the table entirely, and in that departure, in that calm withdrawal, she begins to feel what you once felt: uncertainty, longing, confusion. She begins to wonder if you ever really needed her. She questions how deep your feelings were, but what she doesn't realize is this: your feelings were real, but your boundaries are stronger. You would have done anything for her, but not at the cost of losing yourself. That's the line she crossed, and that's why you left. A man who practices non-attachment holds power that few understand, because he's no longer chasing pleasure. He's choosing peace. He's no longer intoxicated by the high of romance. He's rooted in self-respect. He understands that letting go isn't loss, it's liberation, and when a woman loses a man like that, it stays with her, because you didn't just stop texting, you didn't just block her or ghost her, you evolved out of the situation entirely. She can feel that in her dreams, in her scrolling, in the way no one else matches the depth you carried. She can't name it, she can't explain it, but the absence of your attachment feels colder than any angry goodbye. You didn't need her to make you whole. You wanted her to walk beside you but not lead you. You offered your love but not your soul on a leash. And now she's forced to sit with the realization that your love came from a place of strength, not survival. She lost a man who was willing to give deeply but never willing to beg. She lost the kind of love that doesn't collapse, the kind that doesn't cling, the kind that doesn't turn desperate in the face of distance. She lost the man who would have moved heaven and earth with her, but would never chase her down a path that led away from his purpose. Masculine energy is like a mountain, solid, still, unmoved. It doesn't rush. It doesn't chase. It doesn't collapse under pressure. It simply stands, unshaken by storms, untouched by noise. When a man fully steps into this mountain, like energy, he becomes a force in a woman's life, not through control, not through manipulation, but through presence, through quiet consistency, through emotional depth that doesn't beg to be seen. He becomes her grounding point, whether she realizes it or not. He becomes the one man who doesn't rise and fall with her mood swings, the one who doesn't trade his center for her chaos, the one who gives structure to the undefined emotion she constantly wrestles with. He becomes her shadow in the best way, the shade she can rest in, the silence she can lean into, the presence she never truly understood until it was gone. Most men crumble the second a woman pulls away. They start questioning themselves, reaching out, doubting their worth. But the man who embodies the mountain doesn't move. He observes. He doesn't need to chase her storm because he knows what he offers isn't just romance, it's peace. And peace doesn't chase noise. When she's cold, he stays warm without smothering. When she's confused, he doesn't add to the chaos. He waits, not passively, not weakly, but with power, with dignity, with a deep understanding that sometimes the greatest act of strength is to stand still and watch her figure herself out. And when she walks away from a man like that, she may feel powerful in the moment, like she's making a bold decision, like she's in control. But over time, the sun hits her harder, the noise of the world becomes louder. The men she meets after are reactive, needy, unsure, and that's when she begins to feel it. Not just the absence of your presence, but the absence of shelter. Because you weren't just a man who sent good morning texts. You weren't just a man who held her at night. You were the man who held the room when things fell apart. You were the calm when everything felt too loud. You were the only one who could be quiet and make her feel safe rather than ignored. Your stillness wasn't passive, it was protective. Your silence wasn't avoidance, it was control. And when you finally left, when your mountain energy faded from her life, it wasn't just that your voice was gone. It was that the entire landscape changed. She no longer had a space to fall apart in without judgment. She no longer had a presence that anchored her when her emotions spun out. She had noise, attention maybe, but not not the quiet masculine foundation she once took for granted. You see, the mountain doesn't follow people when they walk away from it. It remains, and that's what you did. You didn't beg her to stay. You didn't offer 1,000 explanations. You didn't chase closure. You became the mountain, still, centered, resolute, and when she finally looked back, hoping to find the same comfort, the same shade, the same grounding she once leaned on, she found emptiness. Not because you weren't there, but because you had pulled your energy back. Not in anger, not in revenge, but because you understood your value. You understood that your energy was a sanctuary, not a commodity. You understood that your time, your attention, your protection, they were sacred, and she had walked away from all of it. The world doesn't teach men to be the mountain. It teaches them to chase, to react, to compete for attention. But a true king doesn't enter that race. He doesn't compete to be seen. He makes himself rare by mastering himself. He becomes the kind of man who doesn't have to raise his voice to be heard. His presence alone demands attention. And women can feel it, not always consciously, but deeply. It's in how you speak, how you move, how you pause before responding, how you remain composed under pressure, that unshakable core. That's what she misses. Because no matter how attractive the next man is, no matter how charming or exciting, if he doesn't feel like the mountain, he doesn't make her feel safe. He might entertain her, he might distract her, but he won't anchor her. And that's what you were, the anchor. You didn't have to say much. You didn't have to prove anything. You just showed up as you were, grounded, disciplined, self-respecting. And now, in your absence, she finally understands what that meant. She understands what she lost. It wasn't just a relationship. It was refuge. It was protection. It was stillness in a world that never stops screaming. And now that you're no longer there to give her that shade, that silence, that presence, she feels it. In her chest, in her nervous system, in the late hours of the night when all the noise fades and only the truth remains. The truth that she didn't just walk away from a man. She walked away from the only place she ever felt truly held without needing to perform. The quiet mountain who never chased, but who, once gone, left behind a silence louder than any scream. And that's the quiet revenge of the masculine man who masters himself. He doesn't need to shout, to argue, to prove. He simply walks away and lets his absence echo. Because the man who becomes the mountain, who radiates discipline, emotional control, non-attachment, and unshakable presence, he leaves a permanent imprint, not by force, but by asterisk being asterisk. And when she finally realizes what she lost, it's not just love, it's the rarest energy she may never experience again. Not because you vanished, but because you evolved, and she's no longer allowed where your peace now lives.